This has been a very upsetting day for me.
Undoubtedly, Sir Simpson, you are referring to last night's theft of the 2 De Kuyper paintings from the National Gallery.
You've heard?
All of London has heard.
Tell us, what do you know of this unfortunate affair?
Well, about 6 months ago, July 1st to be exact, an auction was held at Armitage's gallery for the 2 new recently discovered De Kuypers.
I'd never heard of the artist before reading the newspaper this morning. Who was he?
A student of Rubens, and until recently there were only 6 of his paintings in existence.
Who owned those 6?
4 were in the Louvre in Paris, 1 in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and 1 in the private collection of Lord Winslow Smedley of London.
How did you hear of this auction?
From Brady Norris, my head curator. I immediately gave my authorization to purchase the paintings.
Well, how much did you pay for the paintings, Sir Simpson?
£125,000. No paltry sum, to be sure, but decidedly less than what we had anticipated.
I had no idea art could be so costly.
People are awed by anything which they believe to be rare.
Indeed, and that is why I was determined to bring together the known De Kuypers for a show. The respective owners agreed, and in 2 days the exhibition was to have opened.
Tell me, Sir Simpson, how well was the De Kuyper show publicized?
Oh, it has been common knowledge for weeks.
And when were the other paintings to be hung in the gallery?
Tomorrow.
Where are the other 4 paintings?
The Louvre collection is at the French Embassy under the care of Monsieur Beauclerc, and the Rijksmuseum's De Kuyper is in our storeroom.
And Lord Smedley's?
Well, we were to pick his up in the morning at his London townhouse.
Thank you, Sir Simpson. I think we have all the facts we need to begin now. I hope we shall be able to clear up this matter in a very short time.
Ooh, my poor head. I believe I overdid it at Dame Agnes Bash last night.
Did you hear anything there that might be of interest to us?
I heard many things, Holmes, mostly from the chattering mouth of Pierre Donnet, world-renowned expert on De Kuyper. He has managed to do shockingly well for himself, considering 20 years ago he was a starving artist. But then his ship came in.
Whatever do you mean?
In 1872, he discovered the first De Kuyper in a church attic in Brussels. Soon after it sailed to Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, he began a whole new and extravagant life. I suppose that's why he can afford to keep a luxurious suite at the Langham Hotel.
Did his discovery of the De Kuyper catapult his own work into the spotlight?
Hardly. Ooh. In fact, Donnet has never sold a painting done by his own hand.
There were 4 of us on duty when the theft occurred. Our shift starts at 4 p.m., and upon our arrival we prepare the gallery for its closing at 5. Now, on the day of the robbery, by 5:15, all the employees of the gallery had left for the day, with the exception of Sir Simpson and Mr. Norris.
Was that unusual?
No, sir. It is their custom to remain until the gallery is secured. I personally let Sir Simpson out through the main entrance at 5:30. Mr. Norris stayed on because he was expecting a delivery.
What time did the delivery arrive?
I'd say it was 5:45 when our comings and goings wagon arrived. Charlie and I helped Mr. Norris and the deliveryman unload one large crate and two smaller ones.
Do you know where these deliveries were from?
Well, I'm not sure about the larger one, but the two smaller ones were from Jardines.
What happened after the crates were unloaded?
The deliveryman left. Charlie locked and barred the loading dock door. Mr. Norris went into the storeroom to check his shipment, and I returned to the guardroom.
Did you see him open any of the crates?
No, sir, I didn't.
What happened next?
At 6:30, Mr. Norris informed me that he'd locked the storeroom and would be leaving for the evening.
And you let him out?
Yes, sir, through the main entrance. Then I made my rounds through the office wing, checking all the doors to make sure they were secured.
And how did you spend the rest of the evening?
Looking after my rounds. I took the 11 clocker through the east wing. At about 11:10, all the paintings were in their proper place in Gallery 12. Then Charlie made his rounds, following the same path that I'd just made, except when he arrived at Gallery 12, the two De Kuyper paintings had been cut from their frames.
What time was that?
I answered his alarm at 11:35 and sent him to check the loading entry in the office wing.
Have you any idea how the thief got into the museum?
No, sir. The only keys to the outside doors are kept in the guardroom or in the custody of the patrolling guards. Sir Simpson and Mr. Norris are the only staff members who have keys, and even they only have keys to the inside doors. Well, that's all I know. I hope I've been of some help, sir.
The shipment of Nubian art consigned to the National Gallery was delivered to Wells' warehouse at 38 Blackfriars Bridge Road on the instructions of Mr. Brady Norris 5 days ago.
This one is most intriguing, Watson.
What have you unearthed this time, Holmes?
This warehouse was rented by Matthew Cole. Until yesterday, that is.
Excuse me, Dr. Murray. May I have a moment of your time?
Ah, Whitson! So nice to see you again.
It's Watson, sir.
Glad to hear it. Now, what can I do for you, Whitson?
Holmes and I are interested in the debris from the fire of Matthew Cole's hotel room.
Aye, such a tragedy. Everything was soaked with kerosene. No doubt this one was arson. Not much left to analyse. I found a key in his pocket. No number on it, though. Ah, but there was one other thing. A piece of canvas oil painting.
An oil painting?
Aye, it was smeared with Prussian blue paint.
Oh, may I have a look at it?
No, sorry. I sent it over to London University for my brother Mortimer to examine. He's a professor of chemistry, you know. An expert on paint pigments.
You are mistaken.
Science does not lie.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Monsieur Murray, I am one of the world's greatest experts on De Kuyper, and I tell you this painting was painted by the hand of De Kuyper.
Mr. Beauclair, I am not an art expert.
You stated the obvious, monsieur.
But I am an expert on paint pigments and their chemical composition. And I tell you that any painting containing Prussian blue isn't from the 17th century. The process to create Prussian blue had not yet been developed. That paint cannot be more than 30 years old.
You don't know what you are talking about.
Good day, gentlemen. Sir Herbert, were you not one of the bidders at the Armitage auction?
I was bidding for someone else.
For whom?
Can't tell you that. If they wanted to be known, they wouldn't have hired me, now would they?
What was your relationship with Brady Norris?
We went to Oxford together. What of it?
Was he a student of art there?
Yes, and a rather good one, too. Brady and I once discussed opening our own gallery. For me, it would have been a mere business venture, but for Brady, well, he always wanted to control an enviable collection.
Well, that he has realized his dream. As curator, he certainly must do that now.
Not really. Everything Brady does must be authorized by Sir Simpson.
Mr. Armitage, can you give us the details leading up to and including the sale of the De Kuyper paintings?
Let me see, it was early June. I received a visit from Hiram Davenport, a London solicitor. He informed me that his client had 2 new De Kuyper paintings that he wished to auction.
I assume you checked the authenticity of the paintings?
Yes, as always. Everything was in order. He had in hand a certificate of authenticity signed by Pierre Dernay, the well-known De Kuyper expert.
Did you meet Mr. Davenport's client?
No, I dealt only with Mr. Davenport.
What can you tell us about the auction itself?
Mr. Davenport's client set very strict conditions regarding the sale. The auction had to take place on July the 1st, and the public announcement was not to be made until June 23rd. Just 1 week to prepare. And as if that weren't enough, Mr. Davenport informed me that the paintings were to be sold as a pair. A pair!
Odd. Wouldn't the seller be able to fetch more for them if they were sold individually?
Unquestionably. It was a strange request.
And how did the auction turn out?
Due to the short public notice, many of the big bidders did not show. Mr. Brady Norris, curator of the National Gallery, was the successful bidder, as you know. I must admit that the paintings brought more than I had expected.
Do you have any idea why that was so?
Undoubtedly because of the energetic bidding from Sir Herbert Kaufman and Dame Agnes Smedley.
Sir Jasper, could I trouble you for a few moments of your time?
Always a pleasure to help, Watson. But I must admit I'm not much of an art buff.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about Matthew Cole, the chap that died in the fire.
Yes, well, he may have died in the fire, but according to my autopsy findings, he definitely did not die because of the fire.
What?
Not a trace of smoke in the chap's lungs. No, I'd say the nasty bump on his head was what caused his demise.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in order. So it is the National Gallery theft that brings you to my court, is it not? Well, then permit me to ask, who was the thief who lifted the De Kuypers from the National Gallery? Remember to choose either from your notebook or the directory. Indeed, it was the petty thief who perished in the fire. Now, who put Matthew Cole up to the foul deed? Splendid! Now tell us, if you can, why the De Kuypers were stolen. That is correct. Good show. Now tell me, if you can, who killed Matthew Cole? First theft, then murder. Ah, what a tangled web we weave. Now, please inform the court as to Pierre Donnay's involvement in the case. Such an unfortunate waste of talent. Now for your final question. Can can you tell me what part Sir Herbert Kaufman played in this affair? Splendid! This was a tough case and you cracked it. Excellent job. Court is recessed. Until the next time, of course.
An extremely difficult case, and your score is absolutely perfect. I'm quite sure we could not have done any better.
The best way to begin, Sir Simpson, is to give you a factual account of what has happened. To start with, there are no dekypers.
What?
They're all forgeries. Forgeries done by one very talented, egotistical man, Pierre Donnet.
But how can you be sure?
Prussian blue paint. You see, a scrap of the stolen canvas was analyzed, and it turns out that that particular paint pigment was not in use during De Kuyper's lifetime. Sticky wicket.
You know, Holmes, if Donnet was such an expert, then why did he use Prussian blue?
He was an artist, not a chemist. He slipped up, and fortunate for us that he did.
But however did you know it was Donnet? And why did he do it?
First of all, Monsieur Beauclerc, who has seen all the De Kuypers, insisted they were all done by the same hand. And interestingly enough, every sale was initiated by Donnet.
Surely no coincidence.
Indeed. Pierre Donnet is a very talented artist, but he couldn't make his living at it until he created De Kuyper. He wrote his biography, painted his paintings, and the art world went wild.
Making Donnet a very rich man in the process.
What happened next must have given Donnet great personal satisfaction. Brady Norris, not knowing that all the De Kuypers were forgeries, approached Donnet, the forger, and proposed that he forge 2 De Kuyper paintings.
Certainly he came to the right place.
One can only imagine the willpower it must have taken for Donnet to keep a straight face. Ah, but how could he pass up such an offer?
But why did Norris do it?
He had his eye on the directorship of the National Gallery, and he was hoping that such a brilliant acquisition as the De Kuypers would put him in the forefront after your retirement. Also, he split a tidy sum with Donnet right after the auction.
Oh, my.
So, everything went according to plan until you upset it.
Me?
Yes, by arranging for the De Kuyper show that would bring together all of the De Kuypers.
I don't understand.
You would be putting a spotlight on the 2 recently purchased by the gallery, and naturally the paintings would be compared. That was the last thing Norris wanted to have happen. Remember, he did not know that the other paintings were forgeries.
And no discrepancies would be revealed because they were all painted by the same hand.
Very astute of you, Watson.
Elementary, Holmes.
So Norris took part in the theft?
He masterminded it. You see, he became so fearful of being found out that his only solution was to remove the evidence from view. He hired Matthew Cole, a minor thief, to help him.
But how did Cole get into the museum?
In a crate Norris had delivered to the museum. He locked the crate containing Cole in the storeroom and slipped the storeroom key under the door. He then left the rest up to Cole.
Oh, Matthew Cole? Wasn't he the chap who perished in the fire?
Yes, a fire set by your own Mr. Norris.
Ghastly. Why did he do it?
To destroy the evidence and his only witness.
The most complex and devious series of deeds. I am speechless.
Brilliant, Holmes. This was a tough nut to crack.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
I half expected it, you know.
Why is that, Ellis?
Because something seemed fishy about the whole De Kuyper affair from the start. My European contacts told me lots of art collectors over there were terribly upset when they heard the 2 paintings were being auctioned on such short notice. They felt sure there had to be a reason.
And why might that be?
Well, it's all supposition, mind you, but maybe there was a behind-the-scenes agreement to exclude certain people from bidding.
Certainly, I know many criminals who are capable of stealing paintings. Most of them are in jail. You could probably obtain information on them at the Office of Records.
This one's a real puzzler, if you ask me.
We've noticed.
There was no evidence of forced entry, but if you could figure out that part of the puzzle, you've solved 90% of the case. The who and why will come easily after that.
Won't need your meddling on this one, Holmes. We've got it all under control.
How's that, Inspector?
It was an inside job. All evidence indicates that the thief had a key. It appears he exited through an open window in one of the offices. We're checking out all of the guards and the gallery staff.
Have any suspects?
Not at the moment, but we'll get our man, I've no doubt.
A student of Rubens and a painter in Rubens' studio until his death in 1612. Looks like that ended his career.
Excellent deduction, Watson.
Oh, thank you. Well, none of de Kuyper's work was thought to have survived until recently. In 1872, the painting Lady in a Rose Garden was discovered in a Brussels church attic by art expert Pierre Donnet, who attributed it to de Kuyper. This painting now hangs in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. Since then, 5 other de Kuyper paintings have been found. For a thorough study of de Kuyper's style, see Style and Color of de Kuyper by Jean-Paul Beauclerc, Paris, 1878.
Here's the information you requested. Hope it can help.
Clifton Maddox, art gallery owner, arrested in 1889 on suspicion of involvement in the theft of a Turner painting from the London home of Sir Charles Chandos. Tried and acquitted.
Shinwell, we're working on the National Gallery theft. Can you help us?
Oh, geez, mate. Picture pinching's a bit out of my league. Don't know a thing about it.
Have you seen or heard of any interesting meetings lately?
Well, I hear that Greek bloke's pretty steamed up about having missed the gavel at some auction or other. I heard he's been having a word or two with Clifton Maddox, who almost became a roommate of mine at Pentonville. Only a rumor, though.
Did the rumor happen to say anything else?
Only that Greek fella will do anything for a picture he wants. Hey, have a beer?
This appears to be a dead end, Holmes. I was unable to find any information of note on any of the individuals we have encountered so far in this case.
Well, let's not dawdle. There's work to be done.
What brings you to these parts, Dr. Watson?
Information about 2 cabs that picked up fares last night at 47 Upper Gloucester Place. One at 10 o'clock and the other at midnight.
Ah, here we are. At 10, 2 people were picked up and taken to Axel's, and at midnight, 1 passenger was picked up and taken to Claridge Hotel. Need anything else, Doc?
Tell me, Watson, what did you learn?
The downstairs maid has an easy job of it.
I beg your pardon?
There was barely a stick of furniture in sight.
Very observant, Watson. Now, what of Sir Kaufman?
Oh, well, the butler informed me that Sir Herbert was not at home. He suggested we might find him at either the Carlton or at Brill's Baths.
I am, of course, revealing this information to you under the strictest confidence.
Of course.
Sir Simpson Whitcomb. He's one of the wealthiest men in England. His ethics are impeccable.
And what of Lord Smedley?
Much in the same position financially.
What can you tell us about Sir Herbert Kaufman?
Now, there's another story altogether. He had a brilliant future, was knighted at 28. Then he got involved in South American ventures, Bolivian railroads. The whole project fell through, and Sir Herbert lost his entire fortune.
And Brady Norris?
I never met him, but I know he opened an account here on the 1st of July. with a deposit of £50,000.
Well, I suppose it would not be a breach of etiquette to tell you that I arranged the auction of the paintings with Armitage according to the instructions of a Brussels lawyer, Mr. Alan Knorr.
Do you know who retained Mr. Knorr?
Well, I believe it was a Pierre Donnet, although he did seem to want to keep that very quiet.
Interesting.
The chap only lived here 2 months, kept pretty much to himself, according to the desk clerk. He said Cole didn't seem to be employed, spent most of his time drinking at the Red Bull Inn.
Was anything else left in the room that wasn't destroyed in the blaze?
Only a few bits of charred debris. They sent it over to Murray at the criminology laboratory.
I am greatly distressed by the loss of the paintings, and I must say I regret not having had the opportunity to closely examine them.
Why is that?
For one thing, the circumstances under which they were acquired by the National Gallery might raise some question as to their authenticity, might they not?
We had considered that.
Such short notice for such a major art event is unheard of. But, of course, with no paintings to examine, there is no proof.
How can I be of service to you, gentlemen?
What can you tell us about the theft of the decipers?
Nothing, I'm afraid. I only arrived from Brussels yesterday afternoon.
Could you tell us who the seller was?
I wish I could. I don't know.
But you signed the certificate of authenticity, did you not?
Yes, in the presence of Mr. Alain Noir, a Brussels lawyer. He was representing an anonymous client who owned the two decipers.
When did you see the paintings?
The next day in his hotel room.
There's no doubt in your mind they were actual decipers?
For 5 hours I went over the paintings and could find no fault. The use of color, the brushstrokes, the type of canvas, the matching signatures. There was nothing out of order. It was the Kuiper.
Mr. Peters, we understand Lloyd's is the insurer of the decipers.
That is correct. On June 12th, Joseph Armitage took out a short-term policy on the two decipers.
What was the amount of coverage on the policy?
£100,000 for each painting. I then went to Brussels with Armitage to pick up the paintings. There we met Pierre Donnet, who signed the certificate of authenticity.
What transpired after you returned to London?
I delivered the paintings to Armitage's gallery. After the auction, the National Gallery continued with the same policy.
Sir Simpson said you might be coming by, though I don't know how I can be of much help. I was at Dame Agnes's dinner party when the robbery took place.
Right now we are just trying to piece together what happened to Mr. Norris. Do you have any idea who might be responsible for the theft of the paintings?
No idea at all.
Or have you any idea how the thieves got into the museum?
None in the least.
Were the decipers the most valuable paintings in the museum?
No, of course not. We have Rembrandt's, Da Vinci's.
Then why do you think the decipers were the only paintings stolen?
I haven't the foggiest idea, Mr. Holmes. I'm a museum curator, not a detective. I believe that is your calling.
Dame Agnes, we're investigating the decipher theft.
Oh, I was so distraught when I heard. Word was brought right in during the middle of my party, you know, around 11.
Dame Agnes, could you tell us about your guests from last night?
Surely you don't suspect any of them?
We are merely gathering information.
Well, my special guest of honor was Monsieur Pierre Donnet. He was the one who discovered the first known De Kuyper painting, Lady in Rose Garden.
May I ask who else was there?
Let me think. Mr. Pike, Mr. Ypsilanti, Mr. Maddox, my brother Lord Smedley, of course, and Sir Simpson. And then there was Mr. Norris, usually such an outgoing young man. But he did not contribute to the evening's conversation as I had hoped. Oh, I don't know. I suppose he was just taken aback by Monsieur Donnet's presence.
Did anyone leave early, say before 11?
Well, yes, now that you mention it. Mr. Ypsilanti and Mr. Maddox called a cab from the carriage stables and departed around 10 o'clock. The rest stayed until about midnight.
What can you tell us about your De Kuyper, Lord Smedley?
Well, I've had it for several years. Considered myself quite lucky at the time when Monsieur Donnet put me in touch with a Dutchman who wanted to sell it.
Do you recall that gentleman's name?
I don't believe I ever knew it.
May we ask where your De Kuyper is now, Lord Smedley?
Oh, I've deposited it in the vault at Cox & Company until this matter is cleared up.
This one is most intriguing, Watson.
What have you unearthed this time, Holmes?
This warehouse was rented by Matthew Cole. Until yesterday, that is.